I want to just talk about what I say to be 4, and actually I'll say 5 things that are very important for every highly sensitive person. And the first one is that you should appreciate this trait, that you should know that it's real. Know that it's real, because you're among 80% of the population who don't think it's real, don't have it. We all think other people are going to be like ourselves. At the University of Hamburg, the non-sensitive students were saying, well, how am I supposed to know if someone's highly sensitive? And I really wasn't sure what to tell them. And one of them said, especially because I'm not highly sensitive. So I don't notice the difference between people. So you're going to have to get it yourself, that this is real. And look around the room. Look at all the people who came. This is real. My website, this month there's 36,000 people who are subscribing. They don't read what I write, but they click, about 4,000 click through, and I'm sure that none of them finish, but they get it and they haven't unsubscribed yet. So the sales of the books, the other animals with this trait, just get it that it's real. The second thing that you have to do is then when you get it that it's real, you have to change your lifestyle. If you haven't yet, get going, because you're going to have to do it. You're different, and that means that you just can't live the same as other people. You have to keep the stress level down, the stimulation down. You have to make use of your trait and not be operating against it. So, downtime, and just preach the old sermon again. I'm up here, so I guess I can preach a sermon. You gotta take downtime. Every day you need, ideally, a couple hours where you can just let your mind float. I recommend meditation, but sweeping the floor is fine. Going for a walk, but don't have things in your ears and don't have anyone talking to you. You need time by yourself. That gives you time to process all this stuff that has come in. It's like trying to digest stuff. And when you do that, you'll actually get good ideas. So it's like doing less and accomplishing more in terms of your work life. If you take time off from your work, you'll actually have much better ideas. It's very true for everyone, but more so for sensitive people. So don't plan every minute of your life unless you're going to plan in downtime. And be sure to get enough time in bed. Even if you have trouble not sleeping because you're overstimulated. When you get overstimulated, you're not going to be able to sleep. That's a real curse for sensitive people too. But stay in bed for 8 hours. And if you keep your eyes closed, it's 80% of your stimulation comes in through your eyes, so you're still getting good rest if you'll just spend that time in bed. And I know some of the sleep people say, get up and read or something if you're not sleeping, but I'm not sure that's the best thing for sensitive people. And I think people should take a day off a week if they can. The parents, of course, are accepted from this, but my husband and I have always tried to keep a sort of a Sabbath, a day when we don't do any work and we get everything done. We don't run errands, we don't do anything but sleep late and do something we feel like doing. But sleeping late should be the first priority. And I think vacations are better off spaced through the year, like a week every quarter rather than one big vacation. But whatever you do, don't plan your whole vacation in terms of activity. If you're going to have an active vacation, then you should also have another vacation for resting, where sleep is the highest priority, and maybe you go someplace you've been to every year, or you stay home and just take it easy. You need to just cut down on the stimulation that's not necessary. There's stuff, I don't know if you've noticed how much there is to read all the time. I mean, everyone's competing for attention all the time. So you have to keep your eyes off of that stuff if you can, because I was at the grocery store, and those little things that they put between your bunch of stuff and the next person's, but well, in one grocery store, they had advertisements all over it. There's advertisements in magazines and everything all around me, and I just realized, gee, my eyes are being invited to process. So try not to pay attention to that stuff. And say no. Say no to things that you don't have to do. Nobody knows but you if you're tired. Nobody knows but you if you're at your limit. Nobody else can see it, especially because we're so adaptive and we're so nice and we're so aware of what other people need and what other people are feeling. But you have to say no. So that's another thing that sensitive people often have trouble with. When you are experiencing a lot of high stimulation, you should take breaks. Take breaks before you're exhausted. So, take a break. Take care of your hunger. One of the items on the self-test is that being hungry affects us more. It does affect us more. Don't know why exactly, but be sure to eat, meals at a regular time, and lean on your friends who understand your sensitivity, because, first of all, we can talk about relationships when we take questions if you want, but it's just very important that the people around you that you're closest to understand your sensitivity, either because they are highly sensitive or that they're not, but they get it, and that they get it, that all the positive things as well as the problem things, and then they help you with the problems because they want the benefit of the positive things. And I can see some people have really bright light in their eyes. Feel free to change seats, because it's kind of, I know it shifts, but at times it's really bright. So feel free to go sit over there. It's all right. You can sit here. Because it looks really uncomfortable. See, it's making me uncomfortable. So social support can protect you from the effects of overstimulation. Just two people together are often less anxious and overstimulated than one person. So if you just do something with another person, but also people can protect you. My husband is not here this time, but he usually comes to every place where I speak. And he has a deal where he comes at a certain minute. We've agreed on the time, and he comes and says, it's time to leave, and it doesn't matter how many people are talking to me, he starts yanking me out the door, and that's how he protects me. But I think the thing that is more important that we haven't put so much attention on is taking advantage of our assets. Because if we're in the right job, and the right relationship, and the right environment, then we just flourish, and then the other stuff kind of takes care of itself. Our philosophy tends to be to do it once and do it right. So that's great. That just means that we're likely to have things right. We tend to make good decisions, and we tend to have good intuition and be pretty creative and good at sensing what other people need. So put yourself in a place where those things are paying off for you, and get out of the places where it's not working. So I think that's most, okay, I said two things that people need. To believe their trait is real and to change their lifestyle. The third one that I'd like to say is that you then need to go back and reframe your life in terms of your sensitivity. Go back and think about the things that really hit your self-esteem. For instance, the times when you failed, the times when you made decisions that you just had to give up this relationship, you just had to not take this job even though you really wanted it and everybody else thought it was the best thing for you, but you had to quit. I could have nationwide support groups for all the lawyers who have quit law after going through law school. Law school is a great place for sensitive people. We can study and learn all those facts and everything, but it's not a very good profession for most sensitive people. So we need to, okay, now I understand why I stopped being a lawyer and went through all that for, quote, nothing. We never go through anything for nothing, but it can feel that way. So just reframing your life, you can just start thinking about it, and it takes time, but it's important to do because it changes the whole way you feel about yourself. And you have to get it that you've been people have looked at you kind of and said, what's the matter with you, or why are you being that way? And so all that stuff kind of settles in, and you have to kind of throw it off. Now I know why I'm this way. Jacqueline Strickland, who runs these HSP gatherings, she's always talking about empowerment, empowering highly sensitive people. I think it's true. And then the last thing I say is that if you've had a troubled childhood, then you want to work on healing those wounds so that you're not being affected by depression and anxiety and all that so much. And that's a project. It can be a big project for many sensitive people. I know a lot of sensitive people who are wrestling with really horrific childhoods. In fact, I wrote a blog. I have a Psychology Today blog, and I wrote something called The Wound with No Name, because of the certain people among us who cannot work or cannot be in a relationship or are chronically ill with something that's highly stress-related, and when we notice them or find out, talk to them and find out from one way or another about them, I mean, nobody knows why they are that way. But if you go and ask, you will always, almost always find a story of a horrible childhood. So we don't have a name for it. We don't have any way of, it's not visible, but it's there. And I know lots of highly sensitive people deal with that. And then people say, well, everybody had a troubled childhood, or just forget about the past. But you can't do that when you're highly sensitive. It's not that easy. So that's another. The other thing that I sort of throw in as the fifth one is that you should meet other highly sensitive people, which you can chalk that off the list. You're having this experience. But to be in a room with other highly sensitive people is quite unique. And it's hard to describe, except I've discovered from my few speaking experiences with a mixed audience that I'm very uncomfortable. There's something so nice about speaking to highly sensitive people, and I suspect that you can feel it. So I used to say that it's like being in church, but I can't say that here. But it has that quality, which brings up just another point that I don't usually say much about, and that is that highly sensitive people are highly spiritual. And even if they're atheists, they're very strong about their atheism, because we think about things a lot. We go deeply into thinking about things, where things came from, where things are going, why they're the way they are. In fact, in the book, I've talked about the warrior kings and the priestly advisors, and we just naturally go into that priestly advisor role of the people who are the, experts in science and philosophy and medicine, but also the people who have thought about spiritual things. So I like to joke that the warrior king is dying on the battlefield, and he's laying there and he's saying, how did I get here? Get my priestly advisor, who will then come and explain about life and death and mortality and God and shrive them or whatever is in that tradition. So I'm going to say something else which is depressing but important, I think. I think almost all highly sensitive people are upset about global warming. It's a topic nobody wants to bring up. And sensitive people don't want to bring it up around non-sensitive people because it upsets them. It upsets everybody. But I think it's part of some kind of spiritual digestive processing thing for us all to chew on, and I think it'll make a difference if we chew on it. So I bring it up, and there are lots of different ways to chew on it, and of course we have to do what we can do, but just there's something happening that's very interesting and very profound in the world right now. So just the reason why I bring it up is because I don't think there's a person in the room who's not upset by it. So let's just bring it out and say that rather than having it stuffed down inside. Maybe a few people have already worked it through to some place of peace, but we need to look at the very big picture, and sometimes that's a help. And of course, to know that there are lots and lots and lots and lots of people who are trying to do something about it that are not so visible. Okay, said my piece about that because I've kind of sworn that I would say something about it, because I feel that it's better to face it and do something than to just deny it.